Hello and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. I gotta talk about the something with Amazon that actually might bring Bitcoin down even further tomorrow because Amazon, we all know, is a very important tech stock, and it's actually bringing the Nasdaq down. If you actually look on CNBC, the Nasdaq essentially is dropping 292 as the Dow only drops 113 and the S&P only drops 54. Why is the Nasdaq dropping so much? Well, Andy Jassy, who is the CEO of Amazon, said like that costs from pandemic, inflation, and war are too high for the company to absorb, so they're passing the cost on to some of their third-party sellers, which means you can bet that some of the third-party sellers are going to pass the cost on to us. Now, it's not a huge amount. They only added a 5% fuel and inflation surcharge for U.S. third-party sellers who use its storage and shipping services. But this actually does affect the tech index because this will actually make people think even worse of this economic situation we're in and the supply chain situation we're actually in. And they're basically going to not absorb the costs for the third-party sellers, which means costs on Amazon are going to go up. This could actually result in a pullback for buying, obviously. So that's what people are actually reacting to. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said the company needed to add a fuel and inflation surcharge to deal with rising costs tied to inflation, the inflation, the coronavirus pandemic, and war in Ukraine. At a certain point, you can't keep absorbing all those costs and run a business that's economic, Jassy told CNBC. So basically, Amazon's been trying to absorb some of these costs. We know that Amazon's labor practices sometimes aren't all up to par. But the thing is, like, because of the economic condition, they can't assume all the costs, which means passing the buck ultimately to the customer. And since people are already pulling back from buying so much stuff, this might actually contract it even more. So announcements like this from major companies could actually make us go into a recession faster or maybe go into a deeper recession. So that's why this news is fairly significant from Amazon. And I do think this is probably the main reason. And of course, like Twitter probably not accepting Elon Musk's offer to buy, depending on shareholders. But this is probably one of the primary reasons why the Nasdaq is down, and we know that the Nasdaq is more tied to crypto than the other indexes. So the Nasdaq actually being down very significantly, almost 2%, will probably drag crypto down somewhat unless there's some news that happens to the other side. So we're very aware that sellers have costs as well. Jassy said we'll keep looking at how costs evolve and revisit. Some of the sellers have expressed frustration because they're going to have to up their prices, and that might make them somewhat uncompetitive. And they already had absorbed another FBA cost increase that went into effect in January. So it's like more and more costs piled on to the sellers from Amazon, and that means the sellers have to pile some of those costs on us. Stuff gets more expensive, and people buy less stuff, and that could spiral us down into a recession. And since this is a major tech stock, that could actually relate to crypto as well. Also, if people have to spend more money buying stuff, they have less money to invest in crypto. So Amazon's expenses have jumped since the start of the pandemic as the company has tried to hire and retain enough employees to keep up with demand in warehouses. Facing staffing shortages at some facilities, the company often had to send packages over longer and costlier distances to locations with enough people available to receive them. Jassy, who succeeded Amazon founder Jeff Bezos in July, also pointed to the war in Ukraine, which has pushed up the prices of oil and metals, and China's latest COVID-19 outbreak, which has disrupted tech supply chains. So, like the supply chain, basically the supply chain disruptions, the inflation, the war, that's basically made prices on Amazon go up, 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 and that's going to probably shrink back the sales on Amazon. And that's going to affect the entire tech sector, including crypto. So if we dip tomorrow, this Amazon announcement might play a fairly large part into it because Amazon does indirectly affect crypto via the NASDAQ index. And that's just a consequence of crypto going mainstream and being more tied to the tech index than before. Usually, it used to be that the stock market didn't affect crypto at all, but now it's really starting to affect crypto, and especially the NASDAQ. So that's kind of like the news for today. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button, and I will see you guys later.